I am attending for Connie. I'm the MnDOT Metro District Transit Director.
Jeff Lundy, Hennepin County Commissioner.
Hollis Winston, Mayor of Brooklyn Park.
Leslie Candaris, General Manager of Metro Transit.
Commissioner Charles Rucker, Minneapolis Park Board.
Therese Kaiser, City of Crystal.
Andrea Young with the Blue Line Coalition
And
and Heritage Park Neighborhood Association.
Candy Bacon with Micah and the Blue Line Coalition.
Christian Evans, Policy Aide in Mayor Fry's office.
Jonathan Hansen, co-chair of the Community Advisory Committee.
Michael Valverde, Maple Grove Transit.
Yasin Osman, Met Council, District 7.
Bethany Turnwall, Policy Aide to Councilmember Ellison.
Reva Chambliss, Metropolitan Council Vice Chair and serving District 2.
Thanks for all of that. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that, and thank you for all the time you guys spent serving on this committee. Look forward to working with you all. So just a couple of things and reminders for this in-person meeting. As a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded by the Met Council. Mics are all live in the room. Meeting handouts in today's presentation will be posted on the project website, which is bluelineext.org. Members of the public watching the meeting can submit comments for CNC consideration to Nikongos Tikogi until Friday, October 17th, and they will be posted on the project's website as part of the meeting summary. Nikongo's email address is shown on the slide, but the slide is not up yet. There we go. There. Awesome. Okay, you can see our agenda. So today the agenda is we're going through, I get a review from the Community and Business Advisory Committee, ACPP Board Update, Met Council Anti-Displacement Update, Project Update, Environmental Mitigation Update, Outreach, and Workforce Development. And then we can move on now to the approval of the April 10th, 2024 Blue Line Extension CMC meeting minutes. There were no changes or additions. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion moved by Commissioner Lundy, seconded by Councilmember Chambliss. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And that motion carries. And now I believe we have Alicia coming up to introduce some new staff.
Yep. So if we could have the next slide. Okay, thank you,
There you go.
Jason. We're
I
having some
skipped ahead. I
technical
was supposed to do
difficulties,
that
so
first.
sorry about that. So I wanted to introduce 3 new staff. So first, I'd like to introduce Steve Pierce. Steve, you want to say that? So Steve works for Metro Transit, and he has joined the project team as our manager of engineering of tracking systems. So Steve's role focuses working with the project and stakeholders to ensure that final design and our final product is safe, functional, and meets our project goals and design. Next, I'd like to introduce Amatha Marquez-Simila, back here. So she joins the project team as a community outreach coordinator with over 5 years of experience in local government outreach and in the educational sector. So she works directly with communities in Crystal and Robbinsdale, and she has a side job as the mayor of Columbia Heights. And then finally, we'd like to introduce Panu Vu. And so she joins our team as a community outreach coordinator. She's committed to public service. So she previously worked on the project before a stint in the Peace Corps in Thailand. So she attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she joins the Blue Line team with over 5 years of outreach and engagement experience in light rail development, disability advocacy, and other programs. She works with the community of Brooklyn Park. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to you all. We really appreciate it. Can go to the next slide. We did that because I skipped ahead. All right, so our next order of business is the Community and Business Advisory Committee updates. And we have Jonathan Hansen.
Yes. Yeah, Jonathan Hansen, Community Advisory
Figure out
Committee.
who you all are soon, I promise.
What was that?
I'll figure out who you all are soon.
Oh, understandable. Yeah, last night we had a joint meeting of both the Business Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee. And so it was a good chance to, I guess, discuss across the committees. Spoke at length about the different events. There was an event last Saturday. There's been some bus tours, and those were really well regarded and attended by people in the community. They also discussed the desire to keep the committees going. I know that originally the idea had been to sunset them, but various committee members asked that they continue throughout, just to make sure that we have that community voice in this project.
Very good. Awesome. Any questions or comments? All right, thank you for your report. All right, next we're on to the Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Program Board update. And we have Ricardo Perez. Welcome.
All right. Hello, Chair, members of the CMC. Thank you for your time today. My name is Ricardo Perez. I use him and his pronouns. I'm the chair of the Anti-Displacement Community Prosperity Program Board. I'm sure you'll get used to saying that one as well, as it is a pretty mouthful there with the name. But if we can go into the next slide. Today we're covering two main things. One is to give you an update on the metrics aspect of the work. As you know, the task of this board is to distribute dollars for activities to address displacement. And the metrics and tracking of it is a huge important thing to help allow us understand what can we do to stop displacement from happening and to these metrics help us navigate the actions, activities that we're doing moving forward. So if we can go in the next slide, please. I don't have a clicker or anything myself.
The clicker doesn't work, so I've sent a message for them too.
Oh, okay. So it's not working, but I don't even know if you have a handout. You do. Okay, so we're going to do it offline here. We're great. We can adapt to technical difficulties. So it's just, oh, there we go. So then the next one. So this is, again, work that Kira started a while ago with the anti-displacement report and recommendations. And now they're bringing back some metric work, right? So this is something that Kira prepared for us. And we'll move. Oh, I hope it, yep, I'm going to go back. All right, so there's three big recommendations here. Trying to go back one, but it's not letting me, of course. But you should have it on your paper. Three main recommendations. Yeah, this is kind of acting up. One of them, it's a community reporting portal. The second big recommendation, a displacement dashboard. And the third one, annual displacement tracker. So you can read all of the specific details there, but something that we're super excited about is the fact that this tracking mechanism opens a direct line of communication with the directed communities across the corridor. Especially during construction, we know that that's when a lot of the chaos hits live, right? So having a tool like this, like the community reporting portal, will allow people to kind of like share information in real time about what's happening, and that can be used to adjust the activities, actions, everything that we do. The dashboard itself will then keep track of the trends that occur with time, and same thing with the annual displacement tracker. Combined, these three recommendations, if they were to be adopted by the county, by the board, in community, it will be like a leading tool in the US. Like nothing like this exists, which is not uncommon for the anti-displacement initiative to kind of like create this type of outcomes of being the first ever, given what's at stake and all the work that we're doing. And I wanted to just share with you a slide on the metrics, which just showed an example of the type of work that we want to measure. So I don't know what possessed this computer here, but I promise you it's not me. Oh, there we go. Okay. So before we go into the board updates, I'm curious if you have any questions on the metrics, on the metric information so far.
Any questions so far?
Great. Seeing none, then let's maybe move forward to the board updates. Okay, so this is super exciting. We've been working really hard as the anti-displacement board to build bylaws, priorities, an RFP. We have convened monthly meetings, and we have worked really hard to put a product out there that can start distributing dollars into community. Our plan this year did not go as expected, and we had to adapt, and that's why we're showcasing today this pilot that we're running this end of the year. So the pilot is basically a pool of $2 million. And rather than being a public process, this is an invite-only opportunity and a board-led process that would allow us to start catalyzing, starting, the energy or keeping the energy alive for the initiative of anti-displacement. All of the criteria that you can see in the next slide, all of the criteria and whatnot, I'll stop touching it. All of the criteria is everything's going back to the report, right? Everything's going back to the recommendations that we've made. So to see this pilot kind of moving forward is exciting as we're about to see the real impacts of the work that we've done. On the slides, you should also see a timeline in there of this pilot project. So we're hoping that by November and December, contracts are they're being finalized so that the money can be distributed by the end of the year into next year. So this has been a huge thing that we set to do this before the end of the year. But we're trying to demonstrate what happens when we collaborate, what happens when we invest in anti-displacement. So I wanted to just show you briefly. I'm going to try there we go. So just a portfolio look of who is going to get funded with this $2 million. So we have done a lot of work to get to showing you this list. As you can see, the majority of the opportunities are currently located in North Minneapolis, but Brooklyn Park is also represented across the bucket of funding that we're investing on right now. As you can also see, there is a diversity of nonprofit entities and other types of entities. All of them are exciting, but something that's super interesting is the real estate one. And we're currently in the process of delivering info sessions to the organizations and other entities that we've identified. As a matter of fact, there's one at 5:30 p.m. today and tomorrow. So we're trying to move fast to get this mission done or move forward. We know there's organizations out there who have possible matches that are needed, ready to go. And very importantly, we know the pressures of displacement have started many years ago and that this relief is greatly needed. So what's next for the board? Not backwards, but forwards. There we go. All right. So we still have a lot of work to do, right? This been a year since the board started. It's a young board, but what it promised to do is very exciting. So we're looking to recruit new community members as board members or small business owners. We're also working towards the launch of the public RFP, building synergy with Blue Line Extension, and we're working to fundraise dollars for the anti-displacement activities through the board. So that's basically what the board has happening. And then maybe to finish, I'll say this. As you can see, this is nonprofit, community members, small businesses who are carrying this work, and Hennepin County staff, right? So shout out to them. I really hope that you can get excited and interested in joining us where we're at with anti-displacement. Your government agency has an important role to play. You can adopt policies, invite us to present at your city or at wherever you are at, or just building synergy, right? Because success here is not a great idea from us, it's about collaboration. So if you don't have any questions, I'm happy to go back to my seat. So.
Thank you. Mayor Winston.
Yeah, so I had a few questions. I think just a few. And when I look at this, and I'm glad Brooklyn Park is represented, but when I do some of the math, and I know Minneapolis tends to see itself as the size of New York. We love Minneapolis, by the way, but it's not. And I think the reality is when I see Brooklyn Park on there, but I don't see Crystal and Robbinsdale, and we're talking about kind of that north or near north, right? If you talk about near north, I forget all the definitions. I don't live there, but that's like 35,000 people. If you expand it, it's 66,000. Look at Brooklyn Park, 85 to 90,000 people. Then you also have Crystal and Robbinsdale. And so for them not to be represented in that pilot is just, it's a little concerning and disconcerting, and I hope it's not a pattern that continues because I think everyone needs to be kind of represented in that and within that pilot as well. The other piece is just kind of the closed nature of the invite only or how that was approached. I understand that you're just trying to have a pilot and get things going, but I think there's a little concern there. So I think if we're trying to have a project that brings everyone together, the health of Minneapolis is incredibly important. But then the northwest suburbs, we've had this conversation in the past, right, have been overlooked in terms of investment for quite some time. So I think even within a pilot, right, Crystal, Robbinsdale, there should be a little bit more Brooklyn Park. It's not me being a narcissist, it's just the numbers, right? I think there needs to be a little bit more representation of all the folks along the line so that when you have the outcome from that pilot, we understand how those various communities work, how those dollars are distributed and all that. So it's not a huge criticism, but I do think it is a concern, and I think that within that pilot, we don't want to leave room for people to criticize people not being represented. And then I think the second point is, the process of it being closed, right? I think, and how it was picked and the board and all that. I think that you may want to revisit that a little bit so people feel that necessary transparency is there for people to believe in the whole pilot and the whole process.
Sure. Chair, council members, so just to address the representation, right? So Crystal and Robbinsdale, if I'm not mistaken, but everyone has representation on the board with staff. And we have asked the corridor cities to actively present to the board so we become aware of the opportunities that exist out there. The city of Brooklyn Park, city of Minneapolis did present it, but Crystal and Robbinsdale historically have chosen not to participate actively. I don't know where that decision really comes from, but I agree with you. This is a corridor-wide effort. I met a new person, a new staff member from Crystal on the weekend at the Dream event that took place. To me, that was important. We're building synergy with them. But so yeah, I mean, I hear you about that, and it's noted. And then in regards to the pilot, so we took multiple steps. One was an introduction of an initial list, and then we held a public meeting with the Program and Finance Committee where we co-created the listing community. The list then got curated to ensure the geography, expenses were all aligned with the legislature, and that's the kind of like the process in which we're in right now. The list that I alluded to today is who got invited, but not who got selected as a recipient of funding. We still need to go through a board process where we're gonna identify the ones that will get funded. This process has started. It's 20% of the 10 million. And our hopes is that by piloting this amount of dollars, we can learn enough so when it goes live, we have infrastructure to ensure that we're successful. So yeah, that's that, yeah.
Commissioner Lundy, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
I want to thank the anti-displacement group. I know you're doing something that hasn't been done, so I want to give credit for that because it is a difficult process. There's always more need than there is money, and so as I like to say, as we oftentimes have to drown puppies sometimes and ducklings and kittens because you get 20 great things and you got money for 10 great things, and so sometimes but I do think it's important as you go through this pilot to learn from it. I think one of the reasons that it's difficult in the suburbs is just how money goes to projects. It doesn't flow directly to nonprofits. It tends to go to the cities and then to the nonprofits. So Brooklyn Park would be working directly with nonprofits. And I think, if I understand correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the decisions made was to say, have nonprofits go directly to the board. That kind of right there precludes cities like Robbinsdale, Crystal, and it definitely hinders Brooklyn Park. So I understand pilot is to get out there and test it, and I also look at pilots as a way to learn. And so I would just offer that feedback. I've heard from the cities that the way that they bring money to the table for these type of opportunities tends to go through the city, and then the city goes to Hennepin County, Met Council, the state, and so it's a different path. And so I would just hope that as you guys successfully pull the pilot off, that's it, because we are talking about exclusion people, so that there are people that would be historically disenfranchised or be unable to handle displacement don't get the opportunity. And I always think that's a tough, but I understand it's a pilot. I'm just asking that maybe that might be one of the reasons, and I've heard that from Robinson and Crystal is, and the challenge from Brooklyn Park about the mechanism is just different. We're not-
100%. And I do want to note on the real estate bucket, there is an entity that works and wants to focus specifically on northwest suburbs. So it's not like there's nothing out there, but yeah, you're correct about those mechanisms. And I think that's what this project is aimed to identify. Like what's out there, what are we missing, how do we address the gaps? 100%. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Kaiser?
Thank you. I would echo what the mayor has said, and I would also take issue that we haven't been participating as Crystal. My understanding, this money is going for displacement for housing mostly, or businesses, or both?
Yeah, so it's the housing stability, small business support, real estate development, the three buckets on this pilot. I will say the staff at the board level, they're great folks, but they have actively told us, we don't have anything for y'all. You know, like there's nothing for us to, like a project for us to present, like they haven't been able to deliver that. And yeah, you should check because I
That's
don't know.
what you're looking for as a project?
Yeah, building synergy between the corridor cities, community, the board to see what is out there in Crystal, Robbinsville that could get funded to produce the outcomes that we're looking to achieve. And the cities of Crystal and Robbinsville do have a set of outcomes on that report that I can make sure you all have available to you so that you can see the outcomes, the projects, and then, you know. Yeah.
Thank you, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah.
And what's the timeline for the pilot?
So pilot's already moving and we're hoping to end by the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
And then there's, again, still the 80%, the vast majority of the dollars. We don't have a specific timeline for next year, but that's our hopes that as soon as we're ready to make it public, it will go live.
Okay.
And we will obviously keep you informed in multiple channels.
Okay,
for that. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, are there additional questions or comments? Member Hanson?
Yes. So when you have the item to recruit new board members, is that, do you have open seats now, or are you seeking to enlarge the board?
Sure. We do have open seats. I don't recall on top of my mind the landscape currently, but we can definitely make sure you all have that information available. And just so you, I mean, to give you an idea, like all of the onboarding materials, we still need to develop, you know? So it's truly one of those things they say we're building the airplane as we're flying it kind of deal. So, but we are prioritizing the recruitment of new board members. So when we have those specific dates and everything ready, I'll make sure to let you all know so you can nominate people to serve.
And
Mayor Winston?
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think that the mechanism that Commissioner Lundy is talking about is extremely important. One, in terms of how cities are able to make this work or how to get city buy-in. I think if you just talk about, you can have on paper what looks good, but then you have the operational component of what gets a city to buy in, what gets them to use their staff. And I think that always has to be taken into account. I think the second piece is that when it comes to the nonprofits in the pilot or nonprofits going forward, I think the reason that mechanism, the mechanism is important, but also maybe using partners who haven't always been used in the past is that, you know, we're entering into a political outcome where people are very much concerned about outcomes. And I think that we just want to make sure that we have partners that in terms of the goals and the metrics and what we're trying to do with these anti-displacement dollars, we want to make sure we have folks that are actually able to show those particular metrics at a high level, successful level, or whatever. So cities can also often, if that mechanism is changed, cities can often say, we've dealt with some of these folks. We know the folks who will do X. We know the folks who will do Y. And we know the folks who will do Z. And then they can pick what's going to do best, right? But I think when cities aren't necessarily, they don't feel like they are a part of that equation via the funding mechanism, then I think there's a little bit less interplay with that. And the community can kind of say, well, I don't know those people, or I don't know that group. And then the city has to deal with that because people think we picked it. So I think that's just some feedback. Again, it's a pilot. To Commissioner Lundy's point, it's a pilot. But I think that mechanism going forward is going to be key. And I think most of the cities that are sitting around the table are willing to be pretty equitable in that process. But I think it's important that that mechanism has a mechanism for us as cities to be involved and be motivated to do it, especially staff who is moving in 100 different directions, at least in my city. I'm assuming it's the same in most other cities. So they need a mechanism to say, okay, if I do this, I'm gonna have a certain say and be able to guarantee a certain type of outcome. That would be my feedback on what I'm seeing with the pilot.
Right. Any additional questions or comments? Thank you for your report and thank you for the discussion. It's really important when you have a pilot like this on a new program that people haven't seen before, that we have these conversations kind of on an ongoing basis so we can see what works and what that doesn't work. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Now we move on to the anti-displacement or the Metropolitan Council anti-displacement update, and to Councilmember Chambliss.
Thank you. Met Council's anti-displacement framework, our objective is to enhance residents' abilities to support what was discussed today. And Nikongo, are you going to present?
Nope. Next.
Okay, all right, thank you for that, okay. And that's to keep the housing opportunities, the amenities, and the sense of belonging within our neighborhoods. We've identified at the Met Council several strategies on implementing this framework, and that is through risk assessment. We want to make sure that the investments that are made into those communities for anti-displacement are managed well and given the proper support. And we want to prioritize projects that support making those important community connections, because community connections are really the secret sauce for success of implementation projects. Anti-displacement, as we know, is funded by grants in our systems, and we want to make sure that we extract those best practices and resources through the engagement that we've done, through the collaboration, as we've talked about today, with various cities, and also the different groups that are within those cities to co-create and collaborate with the benefit to serve those that are most disadvantaged and overburdened. Metropolitan Council has several ways that we invest into communities, and we provide awards for those cities that are within the 7-county metro area who we partner with in developing a collaborative approach. We have 9 different programs in our Community Development Livable Community Act grants, and these grants help communities to achieve those visions that they have in their comprehensive plans for building communities that provide livable wage jobs, offer housing choices, connect people to those jobs, and also provide the kinds of amenities that research and those that are the strategists in communities know are required for an equitable region. To be eligible for the Livable Community Grants, each city has to effectively enroll and complete their comprehensive plans, and that will allow them to work with communities to utilize those grants. We do have guidelines that we have timelines attached to for distributing those grants, and we also have some funding limits. But these are grants that really support anti-displacement as well in terms of providing affordable housing, increased affordable housing and opportunities throughout the region to help people thrive and stay in their homes. If their property values increase, for example, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to provide livable wage jobs, and that's the part that Metropolitan Council plays. One of the goals of our Imagine 2050 Regional Development Guide at the Met Council is based on a value of increasing wealth building. That is a new element that we've added to the Met Council goals and values. One of the things that we have gotten a request from in terms of our small businesses is to, if they can advance the slide, thank you, is to review the contracts and procurement processes for small businesses, particularly those that are disadvantaged businesses, so that we can reduce the payment time to receive funding so they can maintain their businesses and have positive cash flow as they do their work. We also coordinate and support workforce training with contractors and unions, especially those local training opportunities that we have to make sure that when we build the Blue Line extension, we are utilizing our local workforce, and we support placekeeping and placemaking to ensure that as we build our station area plans, it is culturally relevant and meets the needs of the particular neighborhoods in those corridors. We convene private, public, and nonprofit philanthropic interests to help us provide resources along the corridor that some of our partners can collaborate with. Met Council has very specific ways that we provide wealth building and anti-displacement that I mentioned, but there are additional support that we can tap into in terms of those private and philanthropic interests. For the Green Line extension, we had a funders collaborative, and that's something that can come out of the Blue Line extension from our philanthropic partners. We also share data and resources for cities and for organizations like the Anti-Displacement Board to do their work and take advantage of those best practices amongst each of the stakeholder agencies.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there any questions for Councilmember?
Yeah, so the question, could we have the anti-displacement board send you projects that are looking for funding across the corridor for the Met Council to assess?
If I heard your question right, you are asking for direct fundings from the Metropolitan Council to the...
Could the Anti-Displacement Prosperity Board send you, the Met Council, projects that are looking for funding across the, that are looking for funding opportunities, basically? Could the Anti-Displacement Prosperity Board send the Met Council projects that are looking for funding?
As I said earlier, the projects that we have are funded through the Livable Community Act grants, but what we can do is work with the Anti-Displacement Board to identify resources for funding through our other local partners, whether it be through information that we have from the county or from the city, from the state, et cetera.
Okay.
I would say in general, it's with the Livable Communities program, it's the cities that opt into the program. So almost to some of the conversation and questions from Mayor Winston earlier, where the interplay between the cities and the nonprofits come into play. But it's good to have it kind of out as part of the conversation because those things are still tied together. Yeah.
And I will also mention that all of the Blue Line Extension Corridor cities are participating in the Livable Community Grants.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Additional questions? Member Hanson?
Yes. The projects, like the pilot and so on and so forth, for the Anti-Displacement Board, are those using the anti-displacement risk assessment from Met Council?
I do not have the answer to that question in terms of who will be applying the risk assessment. I don't know, Congo or Alicia, if you know about that, or that's something that we can look into and get back to you on. Good question.
Yeah. Additional questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Reva. Now we're on to our project update, and we have Alicia back.
Hey, it works. Hopefully we have our IT problems fixed. All right, thank you, Madam Chair, members. So I wanted to provide a really brief project update today, and happy to answer questions. So where we are right now with the Blue Line project, so we have provided, and the FTA, I'm sorry, has provided to us the record of decision, and Kelsey Young will talk a little bit about that, but that finalizes our environmental process at the federal level. The project has submitted to the Federal Transit Administration information that will help finalize our budget and schedule. So we'll be working with the Federal Transit Administration, the FTA, and their oversight consultant on a risk assessment workshop that'll be happening this fall. And that will really, that's the vehicle that will finalize our project budget and schedule. And then at that point, that will be set. So that, we're looking for those final recommendations from FTA sometime in the, we're trying to be not too specific because we're not really sure how long it's going to take with FTA and some of their limited staff, but January through March, we think we'll have at least that final recommendation from FTA. We'll be able to set that budget and schedule. We'll look to both Hennepin County and the Met Council to approve that final scope, schedule, and budget. And then we'll be providing an update to this board.
Thank
Happy to
you.
answer questions.
All right, questions for Alicia?
so-
Councilmember Chapman. Oh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to come and ask all the questions, but, you know, one of the things that our staff brought before us in Brooklyn Park is, this is not necessarily pertaining to what you just pointed out, but I think awarding the BLE construction contract. So that was initially supposed to be Q4 2026, and now it's being Q4 of 2027. And I think from Brooklyn Park perspective, there's a couple concerns. One is I don't know what the landscape is going to be for this in 2020 after 2026, and so I think this is something that's been going on for quite some time. The political will had to be generated. Residents had to be taught about what the project is. And so my concern is if that landscape shifts in 2027, I don't want a bunch of sunken costs or starting over when it comes to something as important as this with the Blue Line. From our own perspective as a city, I think when we talk about a lot of development, we've got the biotech corridor we're setting up and some other things. When we talk about that development, you know, a ton of developers are saying, hey, listen, we want this Blue Line to come through. And the more it gets delayed, the more difficult it is to make that particular sell of what the biotech district is. So I think from our perspective, it should move back to Q4 2026 so that we can just kind of get the trains rolling, pun intended. But I think that also exists for maybe some other partners in terms of saying we're waiting on this to come and spur a specific type of development. The more we push it back, the more we put at risk anything happening. So I guess maybe some explanation on that perspective or what we can do to make sure that it is pushed back to Q4 2026.
Madam Chair. Mayor, so one thing to note, we are planning to do a smaller early work package in the North Loop, and we will be advertising that in the fall of 2026. One thing to note, though, that's pending assurances from FTA either through a full funding grant agreement, so that's where the FTA would then award us a grant and we could then proceed with the project. Either that mechanism or a letter of no prejudice, which allows FTA, it gives us the opportunity to advance the grant we'd have to kind of perform and show and document to the FTA that the work that we're doing will be impactful to our project and necessary to keep on our critical path. So there's a couple different ways that we could be ready as early as fall of 2026 for that smaller package, but that's really highly dependent on a lot of factors, and some which are outside of our control. I mentioned the risk assessment workshop. So there is a lot that will be at play in that risk assessment workshop. We'll be ready to provide updates to your staff and to this board when we have them. But our design for the larger civil and systems package, unfortunately, is at such a state that we won't be able to bid that in 2026 or award it in 2026. That is in the 2027 timeframe.
Council, oh, go ahead.
Just one more, sorry, Madam Chair. One more thing to point out. And so part of that is we did fall a little bit behind in our schedule with our design, and some of that was due to municipal consent process taking a little bit longer than we anticipated. We went through a lot of different iterations, at the Lowry Station and other locations, and adding additional work in different locations to meet the municipal consent requirements. And so that's some of the factors that caused that issue.
With Councilmember Chambliss and then Commissioner Lundy.
Yes, this is a question about the interest in wanting to kind of stick to the original timeline of awarding contracts for construction that Brooklyn Park has requested from Q4 2026 to 2027, and the decision-making processes and obstacles regarding implementing later versus earlier. I think there's interest in wanting to flesh that out a little bit further in terms of what you have offered with the letter of no prejudice and, letter of no prejudice, and what the options are for the sponsor. It's my understanding that the project sponsor can request a letter of no prejudice from the FTA following the NEPA, which we've done, and the work is sometimes used by the project sponsors to advance their project prior to the issuance of the full funding grant agreement. The decision to focus on a small scale versus a medium or large scale process, maybe fleshing that out a little bit and having folks discuss what some of the decision points are regarding that, I think will be helpful at this point, especially in the times that we are in right now with so much uncertainty. We need to look at all of our options for advancing projects so that we're going to be able to better navigate.
I'll just note before I pass it to Commissioner Lundy that previously when we've issued a letter of no prejudice, we didn't have a process in place at council that we do now, which is the Transitway Advancement Policy, which is also a risk-based approach. Obviously, that process of an LOMP is a very risk-based decision, so there would be more additional steps that would have to go through council before we could proceed down that path. Commissioner Lundy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, thank you. I forget that we took some time to get the community engagement right. We took some time to examine Lowry and some other things. And, at that time, it was like, okay, that's the right decision. And thank you for the reminder, because I forgot that. That does have an impact, residual impact on the schedule as it goes. But I do think that, the politics are the politics. I feel like I've been through the whole ringer from got a line, don't have a line, the line is back, we got this back and forth, and so here we are, that much closer, and I think we have a better line. But, I'll see how many transit light rail puns I can put in here. We're on one track with the politics on the side of municipal consent. We had lots of input, we had lots of people, now we're on the next track, and we're on the process. And so when you talk about process and politics, we can only control the process, and we have to get it right, because the politics will use if we screw up the process side against us in a heartbeat. So as long as we're always solid on one thing, then we have a good leg to fight with. And, I think about how far we've come, how many ups and downs, but this is the area that deserves this chance. We're not owed it. It's not our turn. It is absolutely, we deserve it. And I think I'll continue to bring this up, and I think it's something I need to brush up on, is why are we building this line? It's because we have people that don't have access to opportunity. We don't have access to vehicles, don't have access to education, jobs. It's hard to have a job if you can't get to a job. We know east-west transit for much of this corridor is little. It's not robust. And we know that if we have this line in there, that we're going to get more of that back and forth, east and west, because lots of the jobs are not just in Minneapolis. Sorry, Bethany. But it's all over the place. And so I think that, and I think about access to healthcare. You've got North Memorial, you've got Hennepin Healthcare. We see the healthcare system starting to recede as people are closing clinics down. That doesn't increase access. And for our people that I think are areas that in this, that is mission critical. If you can't get to healthcare, you're not getting healthcare. And so everything we have, and I feel good. We have a good team. We have a bunch of fighters. We are given nothing in our areas. We're used to having to fight for everything. So there'll be a moment on the politics side where we're going to have to fight. And I think if you look metro-wide, a lot of people have started to pull back from transit. It's just too hard to advocate for transit. It's easier just to, build more roads, which makes sense in some areas, or do this. But there are people who don't have cars and never will. And I don't know about y'all, but if you've seen your car insurance go up, mine went up $150. And so that's just the cost of having the thing licensed. So I know we're going to get back to the politics side. And I know if we get the process right, if we have a good project, we are still the most cost-effective project in the entire country. And there are plenty of red and blue states right behind us that will take the money if we don't grab it. That's just a fact. This program has been around since the 1990s. It's weathered a lot of politics, and we can weather it here and fight. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Mayor Winston. I also know cities are planning for water main changes. They're talking about, there's a lot of other stuff that are attached to this, but I feel like we are going to have a good process. We're going to arrive at the right spot, and we're going to have a really good story to tell, and then we can fight and make sure the people who say they support transit actually step up and support transit, not just run for the exits. So, thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss? Councilmember Asman.
Oh, thank you. I'm just wondering, with the federal shutdown, how will it be affected in this process, especially if it goes longer than we anticipated?
Yeah, that's Chair and council member. That is a great question. So right now, so even though there's a federal shutdown, FTA staff are funded in such a way that they're not impacted by the shutdown, so they're still working. We're still, working with our Region 5 office out of Chicago and our headquarters office out of DC. Of course, the longer the shutdown goes on, the harder it is to predict what the impact might be. There are other federal agencies that play a role in awarding the full funding grant agreement and are critical to that role. So just looking forward, hopefully that won't be an issue next year, but
thank you.
Great question.
Oh, thank you.
I agree with you, Commissioner Lundy, but you're focused, I'm not focused on that. I've been in this process for a couple decades now, and I'm looking for leisure. I want a disco ball. I want a waitress on the bus. I'm getting old. I'm not going to be able to drive pretty soon. None of my kids want to drive. So I need some rapid transit, and I want it all. I want bus rapid transit. I want light rail. I want it to be clean, smell good, look good, and have fun. If Mystic Lake could sponsor Patron on there, because I'm be old, so I might start drinking. So I'm looking for leisure and fun. That's what I'm fighting for. Because I'm with you in the struggle, but my view is different.
I can tell you I hear all the versions of why transit is important, and I appreciate all versions of why transit is important. Councilmember Chambliss, and then I'll go back to me.
Yeah, there is a process that we're going through, which is why we're meeting with the Corridor Management Committee. A lot of challenges and interest in the project continues. I think in terms of managing the risks, that is part of the process as well. And I just wanted to add that there are very specific requirements at each step that we are required to take to meet the requirements for the Federal Transit Administration. And in advancing the critical path on the schedule, we would need to show the consequences of the project scope, its schedule, and budget, what we talked about today. Should the letter of no prejudice not be approved by the FTA, the letter of no prejudice does allow the project sponsor to incur costs on the project using non-federal funds with the understanding that the costs not be reimbursable as eligible expenses when and if the FFGA is awarded. There's a lot to this, and I think it needs to be broken down into very simple, non-legal language, so we know what our options are, as I said, for whether or not we want to implement small, medium, or the actual full timeline that we originally intended. But we need to have all of the points of decision, the points of considerations before we can decide fully how we move forward. So I think there's enough interest at this table for us to look into that further.
I don't disagree, but that's really worth it to look into an LMP option. There are other confounding variables here. As many of you are aware, Met Council is barred from spending any money on the actual construction of the project, which does change that dynamic. So there are more other conversations that will need to occur. Mayor Winston.
Yeah, I realize there's constraints in everything, right? I think where there's a will, generally there's a way. I would say regarding the process, was not always a politician. Before this, I was in operations. And I would say I have a high level view of what the operational timeline is, but I know that we would lay out the various steps. And then we would say, okay, where do we have to go through the full process? Where can we cut? And I know that the folks that are doing this are much more aware of that than we are. But I do think in terms of what Councilmember Chambliss said, what does it look like if we try to meet the initial timelines? What does that timeline look like? Where can we remove some? Where can we speed some things up? Maybe where we need to slow some things down. If we're going to meet this newer timeline, what does that look like? I don't think any of us can properly speak to that unless we have that type of information in front of us. And I don't think that information has been presented. And again, I think there's a sense of urgency. I have a sense of urgency because I think when we talk about the health implications or the clinics closing down and people not having access to that, or we talk about a city like Brooklyn Park and people always want to point and they want to say, well, we don't see the educational outcomes we want to see. We're not seeing the wealth building outcomes we want to see. And then I can look at Southwest area or other areas, and then they've got all the transportation, they get the investment that they need, and then they look at those children and they say, well, look at the educational outcomes. And then they want to say, well, maybe those kids are just prone to be more successful. I don't think so, right? I think when all things are being equal, you will see all things equal outcome. Or you might see some things that surprise you in terms of some kids outperforming that we never thought would naturally outperform. So I do think that there is a sense of urgency, because if we continue to say, as we do in Minnesota so very well, the process, and that process is often used to justify, but is also used to slow down progress. And so 20 years from now, when someone looks and they say, well, we obeyed the process, and then we don't have the light rail, and someone says, well, these kids are still underperforming, and General Mills is left, and Target is considering, and this person's considering, because you haven't networked everyone into the matrix of that economic success, right? Then people will start making excuses as to what happened. And I can tell you what happened in the process. So I would say, let's just make sure that when it comes to the original timeline and the timeline that's currently being proposed, we have the information in front of us in terms of what can be cut, what can't be cut, some of the options that Councilmember Chambliss is talking about. What does that look like so that we can make those decisions? And that's something that needs to happen, I would say, sooner than later, because we don't want the process to get in the way with the time. So that would be my sincere input as mayor or as resident of someone who lives in the northwest suburbs, where those children, because everybody wants to pimp the kids out until we got to really do something. So where those children are being deprived of certain opportunities, the best example I can give is in Brooklyn Park, we have kids who their families have been poor since slavery. They got out of slavery, they were poor down south. Then they moved to the south side of Chicago, they struggled there. Then they moved to the north side, struggled on the north side. Then they moved to Brooklyn Park, and they're still struggling. And every step of the way, they've been cut off from certain opportunities or haven't had opportunities. And where they move is affordable, but it is removed from those particular opportunities. So for me, it is a matter of urgency to say, if you're serious about stopping that trend, if you're serious about fixing these educational outcomes, do not look at the kids themselves, look at the economic opportunities that drive them. And a big part of those economic opportunities are the transportation opportunities that they're matrixed into that get them to the jobs, that get their parents to those jobs. So I understand we want to stand behind the process, but I would also say, let's take a look at those processes. And let's make sure that we're looking at both options so that we're not hardwiring this level of poverty and bad outcomes that we've been seeing for the past few decades.
All right, thank you everyone for your comments. Obviously, we'll bring back some more information in months down the road as we go here. Any other questions, comments at this phase? All right, thank you. We'll move on to environmental mitigation update. We have Kelsey Young. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. I'm happy to share some updates related to the project's environmental review milestones since the committee last met. In May of this year, the supplemental final environmental impact statement was published. And just as a recap, within that environmental review document, we identify our final understanding of the project's impacts, benefits, and mitigation. There was a comment period lasting 30 days over the summer, and responses to those comments are included in the amended record of decision. Trying to go to the next slide here. Okay. The amended record of decision was published in August, and as Alicia mentioned, that step was the Federal Transit Administration's approval of the amended record of decision, which includes the project's mitigation. There we go. And we're very excited that means that the mitigations within the supplemental final environmental impact statement have now been approved by the Federal Transit Administration. As a reminder, we have a range of topics that we study, including environmental, economic, and social impacts, and we have mitigation strategies across multiple topic areas, but we brought forward some highlights here, particularly focused on those community-oriented mitigation strategies within the project. I'll talk a little bit about the Business Support Program and the Community Investment Fund, which are two new innovative types of mitigation to be included in a project of this nature, and our implementation phase is generally tied to the federal funding. And so we are in that planning phase about mitigation implementation within the project. The FTA approval kind of allows us to move forward into that next iteration of planning for mitigation implementation. And we have continued outreach with our project partners and with community members related to that mitigation, with the actual implementation phase intended for after that funding is received. So to recap, a number of strategies to address impacts within the project. We've talked about this set of highlights for mitigation strategies in past meetings, but the update is that these strategies have now been approved by the FTA. So that includes funding for community programs tied to housing stability. I'll talk about that a little bit more. The cultural placekeeping design groups, which have been ongoing to highlight the existing communities' histories and cultural identities within the project. Additional public realm improvements, beyond what we would typically include as part of a light rail project. And again, these are all to offset community impacts of bringing the light rail and the changes that the project and impacts that the project brings. We also have innovative programs for business support during construction. We have plans for 2 storefront physical spaces where people can get connected to project information, as well as partner agency resources such as Hennepin County resources. That came out of lots of community input of people being able to walk into a space and get connected to information. We also have workforce development plans within the project, and a plan for how the project will partner with other agencies and partners to connect people to employment opportunities and grow those employment opportunities within the corridor and connect it to the project. And lastly, the project also includes public parking near the Penn and West Broadway area, where there's currently a private parking lot that is associated with a building that would be acquired as part of the project. And the plan is to convert that into public parking, knowing that that was a recurring theme, particularly from community members in that portion of the project corridor. So to highlight some further information related to the Community Investment Fund, it's intended to be a $5 million investment in community organizations to offset construction impacts, as well as strengthen community to support existing community members that are living in the project corridor today, so that they can stay for the long term. This is intended to address some of those displacement concerns. And so the funding would go towards community programs and existing organizations who do this type of work related to housing stability. That desire for housing stability was another one of those themes in our outreach related to project mitigation. We have more work ahead of us still to identify how the funds would be allocated to community organizations and how that would be split across the corridor, other than to say that so far that's the direction of making sure that these community investment funds are invested corridor-wide in some manner. Related to our business support during construction program, this builds on our typical practices and best practices related to construction information, such as a hotline and providing advance notice, helping businesses making sure that people, both customers and employees, know how they can get to businesses during construction, sharing information about what's to come, wayfinding, things like that. In addition to that, our major innovative program is this business support fund for during construction. And so the structure of that program, as we've determined so far, would be up to $30,000 per affected business for a program total of up to $5 million. And it is intended to offset those construction activities that are directly next to businesses that make it more annoying for customers to reach where they're trying to get to. We are structuring this program as funds to offset rent or mortgage payments. Some other examples that we've researched, and including the model for the Central Corridor Funders Collaborative, was tied to demonstrating lost revenue. We were hearing a lot that presents barriers for businesses to be able to access the program due to that type of record keeping and proving lost revenue. So we are looking to tie it more directly to that ongoing cost that businesses have to stay in business. There will be additional criteria and an application process that we are developing, and we are still taking input about this, but there will be, distance and time of construction related requirements. We also need to set a definition for what we consider a small business. This is intended to support small businesses and other requirements. But we are very excited to further develop this program and be responsive to a major area of community concern. To share more information about the topic of how we share information in the storefronts, we are looking to have 2 storefront locations in Brooklyn Park and Minneapolis that people can get connected to information, as well as a suite of website-based information where people can get information both directly about the project, including project construction, disruptions, closures, detours, things of that nature, but also get connected to resources outside the project and associated with our project partners. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight our ongoing cultural placekeeping work. We look forward to sharing more information about the cultural placekeeping design groups and the outputs of that ongoing set of community groups. And where we are right now is that we're in kind of the middle phase of the cultural placekeeping work, where we are working with community members as well as our partner cities to define the cultural themes in each station area and look for opportunities for how cultures can be represented within the transit project infrastructure. So things, items that are on our station platforms, et cetera. And just want to acknowledge that cultural placekeeping and cultural placemaking, go well beyond what we are able to do specifically within the project, but this was one piece coming out of the anti-displacement work that we saw an opportunity for how cultures can be represented within what the project is doing. So that is a set of highlights related to our environmental mitigation within the project. And we look forward to sharing more information about the development and implementation of these programs.
Thank you, Kelsey. Questions or comments?
I got a question. The storefront, do they have a design for that, and are they gonna have bathrooms and snacks over there?
Chair and committee members, we are still in that planning phase of selecting the sites and working towards that, but certainly we would want to design those. I mean, I think bathrooms would certainly be necessary, but I think we are wanting to build those out as inviting spaces for where community members will feel welcome.
Commissioner Lundy, and then we'll go over the queue.
Just thank you for the update. Just wanted to stress that I think during engagement, we heard from businesses that are really fearful of getting lost in the clutter. And so when construction's going on, people just like, I don't know if they're open or I don't know how to get there, and they just keep moving. And it also highlighted the spot that cities control ordinances on how signage. So I think that I would just like to add that to your list, even though this project doesn't have control over it, making sure that cities know that we could provide the best possible money for the best possible idea. And if the ordinance, which I'll defer to Mayor Winston, takes 90 days roughly to change some of that stuff when you go through the time frames of changing ordinances, that stuff needs to be timely, I'll put it that way. And I don't know if we can just think about it. I know you won't be able to change ordinances, but I think the cities, whether it's a temporary change to say during construction, to give some of that awareness so people have the ability to say, the way the ordinance is now, I can't use that money. But if I had some flexibility, I might apply knowing that. So I think those kind of two things go hand in hand. And I would just request on the cultural placemaking that maybe I would love to learn more. So I might find time on your calendar because there are things around the country that places have done. Nashville's done music ordinance type things, and people talk about stations as being this, all this bad stuff's gonna get there. Well, if you put good things there, people tend to go celebrate them. And I stress, and I always think of Crystal, what do you want? What does Crystal want people to think when they get off at their stop? And so that stop should reflect that, and everyone should own their stop. We have, all kinds of potential stuff and there's some really good ideas. I think European and Asian have do a much better job of celebrating stops and making them fun and inviting. And so I think if we can break the mold, because there are some really rich cultural histories there that we want to celebrate, not just save, but also celebrate the past. And I think there's opportunities. And I'll just say this, if you don't do it on the day one, you ain't gonna do it on day 20. It's either done up front because you'll never get the wherewithal to come back and redo a stop. That just, everybody's on the train drinking already. So no one wants to start over. So I would love to have more conversation because I think there's some really rich cultural stuff and there's some new developing things that I think would be awesome to have people get off at a stop and know the stop simply because of the way that it's designed.
I don't disagree with that at all, and I'll turn it.
Yeah, so I know we had the opportunity to meet as the Blue Line Coalition about this already, but I just want to reiterate, when it comes to the storefronts, it would be nice if you could hire from the communities, so North Minneapolis as well as Brooklyn Park. And then I saw with the community investment that you mentioned programs. But I know in like North Minneapolis, just with the work that I've done, I've heard the want of like another grocery store. So I don't know how that will work, if you're gonna work specifically with like programs that are doing work in the community, but elevating that as well as something that is a need. It's not only a want, but it is a necessity in North Minneapolis.
Thank you. Member Hanson.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things in here, and I especially like to see that parking on Broadway is being addressed, because that's already been an issue before the neon business incubator, and so that's really good. And I also want to commend the project for having the cultural placekeeping meeting. I think that's great to invite the community in to help with that process. So, thank you.
All right, additional questions, comments?
You got anything?
All right, thank you, Kelsey, appreciate it. Now we're on to our engagement update, and we have Nikongo Sigolo and Anika Robbins here.
You can ask questions.
Welcome.
Chair and committee members, thank you for having us here. My name is Nikongo Sigolo, as the chair mentioned, outreach manager for the Blue Line Expansion Project. And we have Anika Robbins with Anika and Friends. We really just want to give you a quick update on our engagement efforts, which have been focused on collaborating and involving community members along the corridor we serve. Our success is really translated in the very many ways. The very many ways we show up in showed up in communities. Computer is playing a trick on me, like to move back.
We have a very fickle remote today.
Like to move back one slide, one more slide. Right here. So our success really has translated in the very many ways we've shown up in the community. We have been in at various events, participating in community organized events and hosting our own events, really with the purpose of bringing the community up to speed with project details, reflecting on the phases the project was currently in as we attended these events, and also just staying really following our engagement framework as the very many ways that we engage community members and sharing information through social media, newsletters, paid advertisements, and continuing to field questions through our project office, responding to emails and phone calls. And I mentioned the ways we're showing up in the community. We're not showing up alone. We're not alone in the community. We have additional help. We have engagement consultants who have been doing work in the various communities that we serve, who have been helping us with the work. We also have enlisted the help of various community-based organizations to help broaden our reach. And today we have Anika, who's also a part of the CBOs, and would like Anika to share a bit more information on work that they've been doing. And on the next slide, we'll want to talk about the dream process that has started last year, and we're really getting to. We were able to dive deeper into the dream this year, process that has been funded by Hennepin County and coordinated in collaboration with the Metropolitan Council and our partners, our CBO partners. And I'll kick it over to Anika to just tell us a little bit about the dream, what it is, and the work that they've completed through this summer.
Thank you, Nikongo. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Vice Chair Chambliss, and council members. My name is Anika Robbins. I'm a 30-year servant leader based in the north side of Minneapolis, live and work. I'm here representing my agency, Anika and Friends, but also I'm one of a trinity of folks that comprise the DREAM team. My partner, Stan Allen, is in the back, and then also Brett Buckner, who convened us all. And as Nikongo has said, this has been a process that began about a year or so ago. Brett has been involved quite longer, which is great. The DREAM process is a strategic visioning framework. Through guided facilitation, participants are able to navigate complex systems to create a shared vision for their community. And I know that sometimes the idea of dreaming is met with, okay, are you for real? It's very kind of mushy. But in these complex systems of government and decision-making, we found that this process has been extremely effective in connecting and engaging with members of our community who otherwise do not participate in these systems. We've managed to make it fun, in fact. And so we are excited. We've really enjoyed so far our time working with the Blue Line Extension Team, Hennepin County, Met Council, and then we're also supported by other cohort members, some of whom are in the room today. It's a cross-cultural collaboration of folks, diverse geographies and so forth. And so we're just really making sure that we're doing a deeper dive to connect with members of the community in a way that maybe they've not been involved in the past. So just some high-level updates. What we found is that there is a need, and these are all community-generated responses, by the way, increased pedestrian safety improvements, no gentrification, making sure that folks from community are considered for workforce opportunities prior to, during, and after the projects, and hope that we'll be able to create an opportunity for more vibrancy for existing businesses, but also opportunities for new businesses to emerge. Our communities dream, believe it or not. They have visions and goals for what they would like to see in their communities. In all, I guess we would have captured about 1,000+ dreams from folks of all ages. We're excited at the opportunity of engaging more youth voice, which sometimes is really lacking in this process. They're excited for it. So I think it's important to talk about those things, that people are excited, and that's something that the DREAM team and the DREAM process has been able to do, is to get people to pause from their day-to-day lives and really reflect on the things that matter to them, especially for communities like the North Side, where we typically have to travel outside of our communities to access amenities and resources like candy shops, and folks want a cannabis spa and Candy's disco ball. I think she should have it, But point being is that hearing some of these, like when asked, people really do have some ideas for their community, and they got excited about it, and they've remained engaged with us. And so I just thought it was important to share that. We have, in partnership with Met Council and Metro Transit, facilitated bus tours. The bus tours have been very instrumental in helping people understand the breadth of this project. If you have only kind of just navigated around the North Side or Crystal or North Loop, you really don't understand how much connectivity this project can bring. And through the bus tours, really been able to demonstrate that people are able to make those connections. But the kids get it. The children understand that this is their connection to post-secondary education, to jobs, to affordable housing. And these are the comments that we're hearing from them. And sometimes folks like to count the youth voice out, but they are thinking about these things, particularly in this day and age. In all, we've conducted about 8 dream sessions, and 2 in Brooklyn Park, Crystal, and Robbinsdale. We combined Minneapolis and the North Loop. Brooklyn Park and North Minneapolis had the highest attendance and engagement. We captured over 400 survey responses. And again, the top concerns are safety and security, not just for the train to come, but the existing transit. I think it's important to point out it's not just around trains. It's also around buses, right? So I know there's some debate around that. But the top aspirations, dreams that people have include entertainment districts, youth activities, youth employment, senior resources, resources and amenities for our disabled, differently abled community, increased regional connections and mobility, services for seniors, employment, and business development opportunities. people really want to see more products, services, programs, again, that they don't have to travel outside of their communities to access. And that's not just the North Side. The Youth Summit, really excited about that. We were able to gauge close to 40 youth from across the region. So Brooklyn Park, Coon Rapids, North Side, Crystal, Robbinsdale. They had some things to say. We had a great video that we showed at the regional summit this past Saturday. And we were able to get their feedback through artistic activities. They also participated in a bus tour. And then as I mentioned, they participated in a video that captured a lot of their dreams and goals. And I think that's really where we should be thinking, right? Like the future. What does the future look like and what amenities will be available to them? The Dream Summit. This was a feat, a tour de force, and I thank all of our partners for making it possible, the Blue Line Extension cohort members, Met Council, Blue Line Extension Project, Hennepin County, and others. We had record standing room only attendance. Folks from all over the region, all across the Blue Line corridor attended this session, and folks were able to get some of their key questions answered. Again, safety and security, displacement, what resources are available, but also learning from other projects, from thought leaders, local and national thought leaders that have been involved with transit-oriented design. And we also heard city-by-city reports from Brooklyn Park, Crystal, Minneapolis, who am I forgetting? Robbinsdale. Sorry. The status of the project, the anti-displacement work, development potential and opportunities around the light rail in the Twin Cities, lessons learned from the Green Line. We heard from Naida Presley, which was very monumental. Updates from city staff, the safety and security update, and having Chief Dossett and Nick Thompson there was very helpful. It lent credence to the topic, and hearing from them in person, their commitment to addressing those concerns was extremely important. Is that it? All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions, or back to you, Pago.
Yeah, and Chair, I'd like to add, Vice Chair Chambliss and Commissioner Fernando chaired the summit, and I'd like to see if Vice Chair Chambliss had anything to add about the Dream Summit.
Well, thank you, Nikongo and Miss Anita, Anika. It was an honor to participate and support the work that you all have been doing on the ground for so many years to engage communities, to uplift them in so many different ways. The information that we got throughout the process has been invaluable, and you can be assured that we have been listening and incorporating your feedback along the way. We're not waiting until the end. It is actually impacting policy decisions as we speak and even today. So thank you for including me and Commissioner Irene Fernando from Hennepin County and all the other participants. It was a job well done.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Well, we have a last slide here about upcoming meetings, and I know we're out of time.
We have it in our packets.
All right, well,
You don't have to fight the.
we'll return the meeting back to you, Chair.
Very good. Any questions or comments in addition? Councilmember Cannon?
I have to do the big angles to get your attention. I just want to commend what you all are doing with the Dream Project. I think that was one of the pieces when I first inherited this district after the redistricting process, and saw the work that was done. And in this project versus the other part of my district, which includes the Green Line extension, and the lack of dreaming that our communities have around the possibilities of what infrastructure investment looks like, that's something that we have been left out of historically. And so we don't even know how to dream about those things, what to ask for, because we've never been asked before. And so I think the work that you all are doing, while it is, it uses the language of positivity, and so it feels very soft, is actually a really heavy lift. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I'm a huge champion of it. I think it's amazing because you're teaching our communities to do something that they've never been able to do before. So thank you.
Great comments. Additional comments and questions?
Yeah, I'll just second that. I think one of the issues you see in certain neighborhoods is just a low voter turnout. I think part of that is because, to your point that you were making, is that people don't know. So from our angle, when I explain the light rail to people in my community, oh, what's this light rail, this and that? And I said, well, you've been to Chicago, you've been to some other areas, you see how easy it is to get around. Second piece I say is, by the way, it brings $1.5 billion of development up and down the line. And then somebody who's talking about, I want restaurants and retail, we say, well, maybe 3, we're aspirational in Brooklyn Park, so maybe 500 million of that is ours, right? Well, somewhere there's a restaurant, there's entertainment, there's something in there that caters to you in the way that you want it and your community. So I think it's a very important work for people to understand that they can dream, and that this infrastructure doesn't just exist for the powers that be, but that they are also part of the powers that be, and they can have access to what's created from this. So I think it's incredibly important. I think that work translates to people being more involved civically when they realize their voice translates to a world that they have control over. And we just don't see enough of that. And that's a lot of the fight politically that we experience, both sides of the aisle. So.
All right, additional? Great
Can
work.
I just add
Yeah.
something? We did produce dream reports for each city. Hopefully you all have received copies of those, but that also kind of gives more visualization to what your constituents are requesting and dreaming about. So thank you again.
Yeah, and great work. I've heard really great feedback, and I think just doing business a little differently is really paying off, so really appreciate it. So, if there's no objections, we are pushing up against time. We can move the workforce development update to the November meeting, so everyone can kind of stay on schedule with their days. So with that, our next meeting is November 13th, and we can be adjourned for the day. Thank you.